Enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. That person is my heart's desire, and today marks the 12th time he has come to our estate to propose. All 12 marriage proposals were only to ask for my sister's hand. When Lucas arrived, riding his tall horse with extraordinary bearing, his gaze toward my sister was filled with tenderness, deep affection, and determination. Previously, each time he came to propose, father would dismiss him with just a few words, but now things were different. He had become the new imperial scholar, ranking first on the golden list, truly the emperor's own student. The first thing he did after receiving his imperial appointment was to come to our estate, making a solemn vow that he wanted to marry my sister with a dowry of 10 miles of red silk, to take her home as his legitimate wife. The noble daughters in those tales often despise those from humble origins, but not my sister. She truly loved Lucas. I once secretly witnessed the two of them whispering under the moonlight. They had only known each other for half a year, yet I had silently loved him for 5 whole years. In matters of the heart, there's no first or last, and no reason to blame anyone. Father originally didn't want to marry sister off to Lucas, even though he had passed the imperial examinations as top scholar, because sister was the legitimate daughter of General Marcus Stone, the current dynasty's general. Father commanded 20,000 elite soldiers of the northern garrison. Even princes had to show him respect. How could he care about someone without roots like Lucas? Father once said that sister's future should be as the most noble woman under heaven, even hoping she would become the mother of the nation. But sister was determined to marry her Lucas. After father strictly forbade it, sister went straight to kneel in the ancestral hall. For 2 days and 2 nights without eating or drinking, father was angry but helpless, and finally sent me to bring her some food. I prepared her favorite date, filled sweet cakes, but she couldn't swallow a single bite. She only held my hand and said as she couldn't keep her love with Lucas, she would kneel here forever, using death to show her resolve. I relayed her exact words to father. He sat alone in his study all afternoon and finally had to agree, consenting to Lucas's marriage proposal. Though he valued glory and wealth, in the end it couldn't compare to his most beloved daughter. When sister heard the news, she cried tears of joy, hugging me and sobbing. "Eleanor, you don't know how happy I am by." I gently patted her back, telling her to rest. After 2 days of kneeling, her body had lost weight. From the moment sister knelt in the ancestral hall, I knew this matter would succeed. Sister's mother was father's first legitimate wife. After giving birth to sister, her health declined, and she left this world not long after. Because of this, father's feelings for sister carried the full affection of a father. Compared to his daughter's fate, that noble position as mother of the nation became unimportant. As for me, I was merely the result of one drunken night between father and a serving girl in the mansion. My mother was originally a maid in the general's mansion, only taken as a concubine after becoming pregnant with me. Sister's name was Victoria Stone, the brightest pearl of the general's mansion, while my name was Eleanor Stone, a name father casually gave while still immersed in grief over his late wife's passing. Beautiful jade is flawless, but I was not that jade. Sister and I were the same age, but father didn't love my mother and only had the mansion servants raise her. Naturally, he didn't pay much attention to me either. But sister loved me, so outsiders didn't dare look down on me. After his first wife passed away, father no longer lingered on sentiment, devoting himself entirely to court affairs. Over many years, in this vast general's mansion, only we 2 sisters remained as daughters, with no one to inherit the family legacy. Therefore, if sister became empress, it would be the only way to preserve the Stone family's prosperity. But now she had agreed to Lucas Sterling. Seeing sister happy again, I didn't know whether to feel sad or glad in my heart. Though father was somewhat reluctant, he finally began preparing sister's dowry. Precious items flowed like water, from pearls and jewelry to land deeds and spices. Everything was delivered to sister's chambers one after another. This lively scene continued for 2 days, until the crown prince personally arrived, and everything fell silent. While the crown prince discussed the marriage with father in the study, I was sitting with sister embroidering mandarin duck handkerchiefs. When the pair of birds was only half embroidered, father's people came to summon me to the study. As I entered, the crown prince was no longer there, replaced by Lucas, who had hurriedly arrived. He sat there with a dark expression, one hand gripping his teacup tightly, veins clearly visible under his pale skin. Seeing me enter, he only nodded slightly in greeting, his demeanor lacking his former ease. I paid my respects to father and quietly asked what was happening. Both father and Lucas remained silent, no one answering. After a long silence, Lucas finally put down his teacup and stood up, his heavy words ringing out. If I cannot marry Victoria as my wife, I vow to never marry anyone else in this lifetime. Father immediately became angry, raising his voice to challenge him. Is Eleanor not my daughter? Lucas replied. I have always regarded her as a younger sister from the beginning. That sentence poured cold water on my heart. Watching him grit his teeth with determined eyes, I suddenly understood. Father wanted me to marry him instead of sister. The tug of war between the three ended in silence. Lucas left angrily, leaving only father and me in the room. He sat silently in his chair, rarely showing such wariness. Father said, the Crown Prince came to the mansion today to propose marriage to the Stone family's legitimate daughter. The Eastern Palace wanting to marry a general's daughter. If written into a story, it might become a tale passed down through the ages. But your sister refuses. Lucas also wouldn't agree, so father thought of me. Only if I married Lucas in sister's place, sister would surely give up and turn to enter the Eastern Palace in glorious splendor. But even if forced, though Lucas and I had known each other for many years, it couldn't compare to the heart he had already given to sister. Father sighed and said, the marriage between the Crown Prince and the Stone family daughter is already decided. If Lucas doesn't agree and your sister doesn't agree, then only you can marry into the Eastern Palace on behalf of the family. You're just a secondary daughter, but if you're willing to marry for the sake of the greater good, I will properly elevate your mother to the position of legitimate wife, enter her into the family register, enjoy wealth and honor, and you will also become the rightful legitimate daughter of General Stone's mansion. I looked at father, my voice hoarse as I asked, what if I don't agree? His eyes blazed like fire as if questioning. Why won't you agree? He said I was a daughter of the Stone family. If the Crown Prince hadn't come, father might have chosen a suitable match for me to stay peacefully in the capital for life. But the Crown Prince had come. He told me to think it over carefully, but that was just superficial. I thought for a long time but couldn't think of any other way. I walked out of the study in a daze and met Lucas along the way. He said he was waiting for me, that he too was out of options and could only beg me. He said Victoria's constitution was weak and couldn't withstand any more blows, begging me to marry into the Eastern Palace in her place. Father and Lucas, for my sister's sake, had come up with the same solution. I still remember when I was 11 years old, severely ill, I was sent to recuperate at my maternal grandmother's home in Huining. There I met Lucas, who was 14 at the time. Back then my face was covered in red rashes that scared all the children away. Except him, he gave me a white dove to cheer me up. That day, his smile was gentle as early spring sunshine. I fell deep once and could never escape since. Through all these years, Lucas had never asked anything of me, yet now his first request came at such a tragic moment. He and I faced each other in prolonged silence for a long while. My throat was parched, and I could only turn and return to my room in silence. Sister was still waiting for me in the room. As soon as she saw me enter, she lifted up the handkerchief and told me to look at the mandarin ducks she had just embroidered, saying the tail section never came out beautifully no matter what. She wanted me to help see how to fix it. I took the handkerchief, and as soon as I looked down, a heavy tear fell, soaking into a dark spot on the white fabric. Sister panicked and stood up, grabbing my shoulders, gently asking what was wrong. I just shook my head slightly. If sister marries Lucas, would you be happy? I leaned on sister's shoulder like when we were children. Happy? Why wouldn't I be happy? Just hearing his name mentioned, the corners of sister's eyes curved like a crescent moon. It's good that sister is happy. If sister is happy, then I'm happy for her too. Afterward, I told father I agreed to marry the Crown Prince. My wedding was set for half a month before sister's. That day sister rushed into my room, asking if father had forced me. I was brushing my hair at the time, each strand of blowing down like ink. I answered, no. I volunteered. I like the Crown Prince. Then I put down the comb on the windowsill, pulled sister to sit beside the table, and asked with a smile, Could it be that sister is reluctant to let me marry away? Sister pinched my nose affectionately, scolding. You're being mischievous again. That night sister and I talked all through the night, from the crown prince's temperament and preferences to all kinds of etiquette and rules in the Eastern Palace. Sister instructed me carefully about everything. Sister asked me, when did you start liking the crown prince? I thought for a very long time before realizing I could count on one hand the number of times I'd actually met the crown prince. Seeing sister still waiting for an answer, I reluctantly replied, since the polo match last year. Actually, I had indeed participated that day, and it was the only time I had stood so close to the crown prince. That night sister and I played around until nearly dawn before going to bed, falling asleep in drowsiness. Not long after that conversation, I stepped into the flower sedan to marry into the Eastern Palace. My mother, who had served father for over 10 years, was finally decreed as the legitimate wife on the very day I married out. From then on she could hold her head high living in the general's mansion, while I married Alexander Frost, becoming the crown prince's secondary consort. By rights, the legitimate daughter of the Stone family should qualify to be the primary consort, but since my mother was originally just a successive wife and I had only just been elevated to legitimate daughter status, being able to become a secondary consort was already the most complete arrangement. On the wedding day, the musicians played loudly. Behind me was the dowry father had prepared. Though father had never paid much attention to me, he had never treated me poorly either. I was led into the mansion through the side door by the matchmaker. Since the crown prince's mansion was empty and there was no primary consort yet, I didn't need to perform the grand ceremony of paying respects and was taken straight to the bridal chamber. I once dreamed that one day someone would come with proper betrothal gifts and wedding ceremonies to take me home, bowing to heaven and earth and paying respects to parents. But fate plays tricks on people. In the end I couldn't have my wish fulfilled. Following the proper etiquette I'd learned before marriage, I sat properly on the bed, head covered with red cloth, eyes lowered looking at the round fan in my hands and the flower, patterned wedding dress embroidered with golden thread. I heard that because father and the crown prince had good relations, many guests came today, all important ministers with reputation in court. In the bridal chamber, I sat as still as if turned to stone. Beside me, the matchmaker and maids quietly attended, everyone maintaining proper decorum without making half a sound. Not until night had fallen for a long time did I finally hear the door gently open. Then came the sound of servants paying respects before withdrawing. The door was closed by someone, slow footsteps sounded, stopping right in front of me. Those cloud-patterned shoes embroidered with golden threads stepping on the stone floor made my heart race continuously. He gently lifted the wedding veil from my head with his hand. My palms were sweaty and cold as I hurriedly raised the round fan to cover my face, just as the wet nurse had taught this was called covering shyness. He didn't immediately push the fan away but gently asked, "Are you hungry?" I had never conversed with the crown prince before and had thought his voice would be full of majesty and distance. Who knew it would be as warm as a cool spring in a mountain stream? I shook my head, and he gently took the fan, then spread open his other hand. In his palm were several pieces of pastry laid on a silk handkerchief, clearly brought from the front hall. He said, "I heard the new bride must maintain propriety all day and can't eat much, so I brought some pastries for you." Speaking, he sat down beside me and moved the pastries toward me. Indeed, my stomach was empty. I had been hungry for a long time. But looking at those snacks before me, I could only smile awkwardly. This consort is not hungry, father had instructed. After marrying into the Eastern Palace, all rules must be followed 1,000 times more carefully than at home. I stood up to pay respects to the crown prince, intending to bend down to help him remove his shoes. But before I could bend, he had already helped me up and even stuffed a piece of pastry into my mouth. The sweet taste of dates and jujubes left me momentarily flustered. Looking up at him, in the flickering red candlelight, I could only see his face reflecting a gentle smile. "Since I've already brought them, try a few pieces. What harm could there be?" Under his gentle gaze, I finally ate all those snacks. Mother once said that whether in noble houses or common families, being a concubine was no different from being a named servant. So from the moment I agreed to marry into the Eastern Palace, I had mentally prepared myself to serve the crown prince. But he didn't need my service at all. Instead, he gently wiped the pastry crumbs from the corner of my mouth. He said he was tired and had to attend morning court tomorrow, so he wanted to rest. All the rules I'd learned for serving him vanished the moment he leaned over and gently placed a kiss on my lips. When our bodies touched, I was so frightened that I clenched my fists, nails digging into flesh, just to maintain some clarity. "Are you afraid of me?" He stopped, whispering in my ear. "If you're afraid, I won't force you." I lay stiffly, eyes fixed on the patterns on the bed. He just gently pulled up the covers and lay down beside me. I suspected I had displeased him and turned to steal a glance. He had already closed his eyes, his expression neither happy nor sad. I gripped the covers tightly, not knowing whether to feel relieved or afraid. He spoke again. "You don't need to be so guarded from now on. You are my wife after all." On our wedding night, I didn't consummate with him. Yet he wasn't angry at all, and even said I was his wife. Just that one sentence was enough to keep me awake all night. I closed my eyes but couldn't fall asleep at all. When dawn came, I finally dozed off drowsily. When I woke, the crown prince was no longer beside me. Where he had lain was already cold. I hurriedly got up and called the maids to help me wash and do my hair, asking what time it was. The maid bowed her head and answered, "It's already past the second quarter of the Sai hour. Soon the crown prince will return from court." Yet I had just woken up, feeling somewhat panicked. Sitting by the window letting the maid leisurely do my hair, seeing my restlessness, she gently smiled to reassure me. "The crown prince instructed that you should rest a bit more and only have someone report when you wake." I looked at my reflection in the bronze mirror, my heart filled with swirling thoughts. As a secondary consort, I wasn't qualified to accompany the crown prince to the palace for ceremonies. Yet what rule dictated that the back courtyard should come pay respects to me, a mere secondary consort? Though I didn't know who had set this rule, they came nonetheless. Most of the women in the Eastern Palace's back courtyard were daughters of powerful officials, sent to the mansion early. Though they didn't yet have clear titles, once the crown prince ascended the throne, they would certainly enjoy considerable glory. Yet I had become the one with official status among them. Sitting in the seat of honor, I glanced around. 5 people had come in total. A maid informed me that one was too weak and had fallen ill yesterday, so couldn't appear. I exchanged brief greetings and had the prepared greeting gifts distributed to each person. Amid the endless praise, I had to force smiles until my face was stiff before the morning greetings finally ended. I rubbed my neck, recalling each name and face, finally remembering the absent one was the 3rd young lady of the minister's mansion, who had entered the mansion 7 months before me. Just after seeing off the guests, before I could catch my breath, the crown prince returned. The young eunuch reported that flooding had occurred in the north. The crown prince had just returned and went straight to his study to discuss matters. Of the entire 5-room quarters, only I was left to use them. The crown prince was busier than I'd imagined. The maid said that before I married in, he hadn't set foot in the back courtyard for nearly a month, either busy handling official matters in his study or entering the palace to attend to the emperor. I was idle in the small courtyard, only able to grind ink and practice calligraphy alone. After practicing several pages while concentrating, I suddenly heard a male voice at the door. "Staying inside the mansion, don't you feel bored?" It was the crown prince. I hurriedly put down my brush to welcome him and pay respects. He seemed in decent spirits, but when he picked up the page I'd just practiced, his gaze held something hard to describe. My handwriting had been poor since childhood, studying for years only made it barely presentable. I lowered my head awkwardly. "My clumsy writing has made your highness laugh." My heart was churning, hands gripping the silk handkerchief as if to tear it. The crown prince's eyes remained on the paper, his voice gentle. "Yesterday I already told you not to force yourself. Why don't you listen?" Then he continued, "You've married me, from now on you and I are husband and wife as one body." His words came out so naturally they made my heart flutter. I wanted to say that, husband and wife as one, was the status of a primary consort, but looking into his calm eyes, the words stuck in my throat. I could only stand silently to one side, letting him continue examining my brushwork. He paused at the character Hesse River on the paper and suddenly asked, "Do you have a childhood name?" I shook my head, "No, your highness." Then added, "My father came from a military background." Though he wasn't well versed in refined culture, he never paid much attention to things like daughters' childhood names. The crown prince looked at me and said softly, "Then may I give you a childhood name?" He was my husband, of course there was nothing wrong with him giving me a courtesy name. I nodded slightly, and he took my hand, writing on the paper 2 characters, Wan Wan, round round. His brushstrokes were firm and decisive, each stroke carrying steady strength. He said, "There's a line. The rabbit is round and round, waiting by the river." He hoped that after marrying me, I would be free and happy. The warmth of his palm made my hand tremble slightly, the brush tip went astray, splashing a dark ink stain on the paper. I tilted my head to look at his features, my heart suddenly skipping a beat. I saw how he treated others, then he always referred to himself as the Eastern Palace Crown Prince, the nation's future ruler. But when beside me, he had never referred to himself that way. In that moment, I almost forgot his status, only remembering that the person before me was my husband. I secretly pressed my palm, wanting to stay clear-headed so chaotic thoughts wouldn't take root. After getting my courtesy name, the crown prince only called me Yuan Yuan. On the 3rd day after I entered the mansion, he handed over all matters big and small in the residence for me to handle. I feared I wouldn't do well, but he told me to have presence. Whatever happened, I had him as support. His attitude left me stunned, unclear whether he valued my father or truly had feelings for me. But what the maids whispered wasn't wrong. The crown prince rarely visited the back courtyard, sometimes staying in his study all night for days on end. The northern flooding grew increasingly serious. The person sent to provide relief was a close minister under the crown prince, but before reaching the destination, someone submitted a memorial accusing him of land grabbing and causing chaos in the capital's outskirts, even resulting in a murder case. The memorial was presented to the Dragon Throne, saying that at the feet of the emperor he dared act recklessly and conceal the truth, making the emperor furious. The crown prince was also reprimanded and made to kneel at the main hall for half a period. I couldn't help with court affairs, only doing my best to handle back courtyard matters. Fortunately, the others in the mansion were easy to get along with. The young ladies who entered before me also gradually understood the crown prince's temperament. Each found ways to keep to themselves peacefully. Only one person, from when I entered until now, I had never met face to face, the 3rd young lady of the minister's household. Her name was Jade Ashford, the only beloved daughter of Minister Ashford, truly a pearl in her parents' hands. I heard she had been ill from before, this illness lasting 10 days without stopping. I sent people with medicine many times but never saw her return gifts or reply. I thought she was truly recuperating from illness, but unexpectedly encountered her right in front of the crown prince's study. At that time the crown prince had just been reprimanded at court. I had the kitchen prepare nourishing soup to bring to him, but at the study door I met her. If not for the maid's quiet reminder, I might not have recognized that this woman with peach blossom beauty and moon-like bearing was Jade Ashford, who always claimed to be too seriously ill to go out. She also carried a pot of soup, obviously also coming to see the crown prince. Only she had arrived earlier than me, having stood at the door for a long time. Our eyes met, she just glanced at me lightly, hurriedly paid respects, then withdrew her gaze. I stood on the left side, she on the right, waiting in silence. Not until the advisors in the study left did a young eunuch step out, taking both pots of soup inside. The crown prince clearly didn't want to see anyone. The soup was taken away. Jade Ashford reacted faster than me, gently instructing the young eunuch, "Please take good care of His Highness." She turned and left, leaving behind gentle instructions before disappearing. Finally, the young attendant paid respects to me, saying in a low voice, "His Highness the Crown Prince has never allowed women to set foot in his study." Only then did I understand, quietly returning to my own courtyard. I thought the Crown Prince would again stay up alone all night, but unexpectedly he came. In my room, the lamps had been extinguished early. The two of us lay on the bed, peacefully entering sleep. I listened to his steady breathing. In the midst of drowsy dreams, I suddenly heard the Crown Prince say, "Tonight's soup was very delicious." Then my hand was held by him, gently patting in comfort. The next morning, while I was reviewing the mansion's account books, my sister Victoria and Lucas's wedding invitation arrived. I had long prepared congratulatory gifts and already knew this news. Yet when I saw the two names gilded on the red invitation, my heart still felt a strange sense of displacement, as if past and present lives were separated by distance. The night before Sister's wedding, I returned to the Stone mansion early to help her with her hair. The Stone family only had us two sisters, now both married out. The one who hurt most was probably Father. I held the darkwood comb, gently combing through each strand of Sister's black hair. Sister had always been composed. Yet that day she showed a rare shyness. She whispered, asking me, "Does the Crown Prince treat you well?" I smiled and answered, "Very well. He treats me extremely thoughtfully. Though busy, the Crown Prince always remembers me and brings back little novelties. A few days ago, he even took me horseback riding outside the city to relieve boredom." Sister leaned closer, lowering her voice to ask if what the wet nurse taught about bedroom matters was true. I froze. Sister thought I was embarrassed. Actually, I didn't know if those things were true or false, because after our wedding night, the Crown Prince was always considerate, afraid I'd be uncomfortable. The times he came to my room, the most intimate was only holding me to sleep. The next morning, Sister got married. Father practically emptied the mansion's wealth. The dowry procession stretched for miles. The precious pearl being sent away was my sister. Lucas personally came to receive his bride, music playing jubilantly all along the route. The male cousins all blocked the door. Lucas had to work hard before he could enter. Leading Sister out, when passing by me, Lucas suddenly paused, saying softly, "Thank you for making this possible." I lowered my eyes, shifting slightly to the side without responding. I once wondered if he ever understood my feelings for him, but thinking about it, whether he understood or not no longer mattered. His heart had long ago been given only to Sister, leaving no room for anyone else. People living in this world must learn to look forward. Whether things work out or not is no longer important. When Sister got into the flower set-in, I stood beside Father, seeing his eyes reddened. My mother, who had always kept her head down and endured, that day also rarely held her head high with some spirit, busily receiving guests. The Crown Prince didn't personally attend but prepared generous gifts. Additionally, the third prince also sent people with betrothal gifts, the display no less than the Eastern palaces. Mother said, "It's because Father is highly regarded at court." I understood Father was illustrious. But I also knew the third prince had long been secretly competing for the Crown Prince position. Gifts poured in from everywhere. Father accepted them all. For this wedding, nearly half the capital was stirred up. When I returned to the Eastern Palace, the music still echoed in my ears. That day the Crown Prince didn't bury himself in his study as usual, but came to my room to paint. Everyone knew the Empress was skilled at painting. The Crown Prince was her own son, his brush skills were no less. He painted red plum blossoms in snow, proud in the cold, with noble bearing. I stood beside him grinding ink. With one stroke falling, the plum blossom on paper suddenly seemed to come alive with spirit. While painting, the Crown Prince said, "I heard that today, third brother also sent congratulatory gifts to the general's mansion." He spoke while his hand didn't stop, making me pause in grinding ink. So I recounted what I'd seen on the third prince's gift list to him. The Crown Prince just smiled lightly. I was just asking casually. Don't worry about such trivial matters. A gentle smile played at the corner of his mouth. With the final brushstroke, he put down the brush. A painting of red plums blooming on palace walls, as vivid as life. "This painting will hang in your room," the Crown Prince said. "When winter comes, I'll take you into the palace to the plum garden where the plums bloom most beautifully." Yuan, have you been to the palace before?" he asked. "I have, but that was several years ago, when I had just been brought back to the capital. During the Lantern Festival, the emperor held a banquet for all the civil and military officials. Father originally planned to bring Sister, but she caught a cold, so she begged Father to take me to the palace instead. That was my first time, and the only time I entered the imperial palace. Everything in the palace seemed strange to me. My eyes kept glancing everywhere. Father noticed and said softly, "If you feel stifled, just ask a palace maid to take you outside for fresh air." Fireworks bloomed like brocade throughout the capital, visible from within the palace. I walked on the snow for a long time without realizing, losing the palace maid who was guiding me. Finally, in a small path, I met a young eunuch being scolded. I helped him escape trouble, and he showed me the way. Thanks to that, I safely returned to Father's side. The crown prince once promised to take me to the palace to view plums, but before winter came, an imperial edict was issued, ordering the crown prince to be confined to his mansion. All work in the crown prince's hands was immediately transferred, half given to the third prince to handle. It was still about the northern floods. The minister sent by the crown prince, not only was his son the troublemaker, but he himself used the excuse of going to provide relief to feast with officials along the way, nearly delaying important matters. The emperor was truly angry this time, blaming the crown prince for poor judgment in personnel and insufficient authority, issuing house arrest for half a month. Even the empress in the palace was reprimanded for failing to teach her son properly, having to remove her hairpins and eat vegetarian food while chanting sutras. The crown prince clearly suffered a setback. Advisors went in and out of his study constantly, yet still couldn't turn the situation around. Finally, the crown prince angrily slammed the table, driving everyone out. Just at that moment, Jade Ashford was allowed into the study. It's unclear what she said, but the next day Minister Ashford presented a memorial recommending Lucas to take over pacifying the north. Lucas was my sister's husband, now considered close to the crown prince. Exchanging an incompetent person for a trustworthy relative was indeed a beneficial move. Compared to Jade Ashford, he truly was superior by several degrees. What was surprising was that such a rare opportunity to gain merit, yet the third prince didn't compete for it, just indifferently let Lucas take the position. The crown prince was still under house arrest, while Lucas had already left the capital, heading north. Sister stayed alone in the Sterling mansion, bored with no company, so she often sent people to invite me over. The two sisters sat together, sometimes comparing embroidered fragrant pouches, other times chatting about recent happenings among the noble families. Sister's fragrant pouch was embroidered with mandarin ducks playing on water waves. The fragrance inside was also very special. I curiously asked if it was the popular fragrance in the capital. Sister just smiled and said she wasn't sure, she only knew Lucas had given it to her. She herself had never seen it before. However, it was very effective for calming nerves and helping sleep. Sister also said if I liked it, she would share some with me. In return, she even gave me half a box of the fragrance to take back. I planned to make a new fragrant pouch for the crown prince. Recently he'd been having trouble sleeping, unable to rest peacefully, with dark circles clearly visible under his eyes. While I sat making the fragrant pouch, the crown prince sat beside me reading. He said that he'd been busy before, but now under house arrest, he had time to keep me company. Mentioning the house arrest, his eyes carried a hint of pain and self-mockery. Father Emperor never loved me since childhood. Mother was often scolded for small matters, so many times I can't even count anymore. He favors consort Jing of the Jingui Palace, rarely setting foot in Mother's palace. He continued softly, though I am the crown prince, I've always been cautious and wary, worrying about every little detail for Mother in the back palace. Who knew it would implicate her today? The crown prince gripped the book in his hands tightly. The flickering firelight dyed the pages an old yellow. Consort Jing was the third prince's birth mother, and had long been favored by the emperor. Thanks to this, though the third prince wasn't legitimate, he received favor equal to anyone. With illustrious reputation and power at court not inferior to the crown prince, all due to his majesty's biased favor. Your Highness is the empress's only bloodline. She definitely won't blame you. Since power has already been divided, Your Highness must take care of your health even more, I comforted softly. The fragrant pouch was finished. I took the fragrance sister had gifted and was about to put it inside. Though light, the fragrance had deep lingering notes. Just one sniff made one feel mentally refreshed. The crown prince also recognized this scent and asked, "Is this a new fragrance in the mansion?" "No, sister gave it to me today. She's been weak since childhood, often sleeping restlessly at night. She said this fragrance can calm the nerves, so she shared half with me," I answered while carefully sewing. The crown prince put down his book, came over and picked up a grain of the incense, sniffing lightly before saying, "This is imported white resin incense. I heard the production is extremely complex, only a few boxes can be tributed each year. After entering the palace, it's usually only bestowed upon the empress and consort." With the white resin incense right before me, my heart felt suddenly constricted. In the palace there was only one consort. Lucas was an external minister who couldn't enter the palace, And the crown prince's mansion didn't have this fragrance. So where did this fragrance come from? I gripped the fragrant pouch tightly. The white resin incense inside was crushed, its fragrance rising strongly, spreading to my nostrils. Could it be that Lucas going north to pacify the natural disaster while the third prince didn't argue, was actually paving the way for his promotion? If Lucas had truly secretly submitted to the third prince, plotting to overthrow the stones, then what about my sister? What about my father? And what about the general's mansion holding 20,000 troops, which had always maintained neutrality in court disputes? The crown prince sat across from me, silently taking the fragrant pouch from my hand. As soon as I let go, my heart felt like falling in an abyss. He turned the fragrant pouch over and over. The fragrance wafted again, the collision making me feel suffocated. Wan Yan, the crown prince suddenly called. If one day Lucas and I become enemies, whose side would you take? What does your highness mean by this? I was startled, breathing erratically. He didn't answer immediately but just said, I only want to know, in your heart, between him and me, who is more important? The crown prince's gaze remained gentle while his words made my heart tremble. But his eyes made me feel I had nowhere to hide. It was as if he had long known about my past feelings for Lucas, yet I couldn't figure out how he had guessed this. Faced with his question, my mind was in complete chaos. After contemplating for a long time, I finally answered softly, Your Highness is my husband. If such a day truly comes, I vow to stand by your highness's side, but my sister is innocent. Then what if it's between me and the Stone family? He continued asking. The night wind swept past outside, rustling through the bamboo grove like whispered ghost voices. Between the crown prince and Lucas, I had no right to choose. But between the crown prince and the Stone family, I couldn't choose either or abandon anyone. So I could only remain silent, to the point where even my hands gripping my robes no longer matched. He suddenly laughed softly. I guess if such a day truly came, you surely wouldn't side with anyone. If you can't have both sides intact, no matter who fails, you wouldn't be able to live peacefully. How many daughters of generals get to live according to their own wishes since birth? The crown prince's words fell one by one like weights into my heart, so heavy I could barely breathe. So whether it's Lucas or the Stone family, I won't let you fall into such a dilemma. He leaned forward slightly, gently touching my cheek, his thumb softly stroking the corner of my eye. I looked into his eyes, seeing only my own reflection. At that moment, I didn't know why I believed his words were true, the truest in all the world. Your Highness seems to understand me very well, even more than my sister. He smiled lightly indeed. In all this world, the person who took me years to understand clearly, besides my third brother, is only you. I frowned slightly. Before I could understand, he continued gently. That year you followed your father to the palace banquet. On the way you met a young eunuch and drove away those bullying him to help. I was startled, trying hard to remember, vaguely saying a name. Little Ding. As soon as I said it, I was stunned. That night, I had deliberately acted arrogant to drive those people away. There was clearly no one around to witness it. So how did the crown prince know? Alexander Frost. Little Ding. I softly called that name 2 or 3 times, then unconsciously exclaimed, Was it you? Doesn't it seem like it? He smiled casually, seemingly in admission. The crown prince recounted that year before the Lantern Festival banquet, the palace suddenly discovered someone using evil sorcery and curses, causing consort Jing to fall seriously ill. Finally it was traced to a palace made of the Empress, suspected of using curse techniques. Though the Empress pleaded her innocence with all her might, the Emperor was still furious, confining her in the palace and not allowing anyone to see her, not even letting her attend the palace banquet. The crown prince also fell from favor because of this, almost being deposed from his eastern palace position to establish the third prince as replacement. What should have been a reunion turned into separation. He secretly disguised himself as a eunuch, hoping to slip through small paths to visit his mother once. But unfortunately he was stopped by other eunuchs along the way, accused of stealing food from the palace banquet. Not only was everything robbed from him, he almost got reported to the chief Strugord. During the struggle, I accidentally wandered by, using my status as the general's young lady to scare them into scattering. He said he was a young eunuch from the food preparation area. I said I was the second young lady of the Stone family. He thanked me. I said if you always give in, you'll surely be bullied by others. Father once taught me and sister that if someone bullies us, we should clench our fists and fight back. Afterward he had people inquire about me and even saw me several times, but only watched from afar. I lived peaceful days in the stone mansion's inner courtyard, while he walked step by dangerous step at court. Each of those meetings, just knowing I was safe was enough meaning for him. Back then I thought I had just accidentally encountered a bully and spoke up to stop them in a moment of indignation. Who knew that the one keeping his head down hiding in the shadows, calling himself Little Ding, was actually His Highness the Crown Prince. That day when his provisions were robbed clean, I was the one who gave him some sweet cakes to stave off hunger. Actually those snacks I had originally planned to hide and bring back for sister, but seeing how pitiful he looked, if he couldn't complete his assigned task, I feared he'd be punished, so I shared more than half with him. So on our wedding night when he wrapped cakes in cloth to give me, it was actually a hidden message. In those cakes were dates and jujubes, symbolizing wishes for early birth of noble sons. Why didn't you say so directly? I asked. He just smiled lightly. I thought your heart still remembered Lucas, so I held back from mentioning the past, wanting to compete with him for a place in your heart after we married. I lowered my head in admission. Indeed, Lucas had been in my heart for many years. But from the day I witnessed him and sister making lifetime vows, from when I married into the Eastern Palace, that feeling should have ended. The Crown Prince's gaze was gentle, his handsome face like stars making my ears unconsciously heat up. I said I feared disappointing his true feelings. He asked if I believed his feelings were real. I once thought he was good to me, because I bore the Stone surname. But deep in my heart there was always another voice, saying he wouldn't deceive me. I believed the cakes he gave that night came from his true heart. I also believed the courtesy name, Juan, he gave me was sincere. Father taught me not to fail in marriage duties, mother taught me to be gentle and understanding, and sister always saw me as the same little sister from long ago. Only Alexander wished for me to be free, wished for me to smile and be happy. I grew up in the palace, once praised by others, also once treated coldly. All the true feelings in my life more or less came after calculation, but the true heart I offer you is definitely the most genuine of all. People born into common families find it hard to avoid scheming, let alone in places of power and nobility, in the imperial family. I had sister to protect me, but he didn't, everything he had to fight for himself. This was the fate of emperors, blades hanging overhead. True feelings worth 10 parts, in this life, who could give that? He said the things I worried about most definitely wouldn't happen. No matter what changes came later, he hoped I would hold firm to my heart and not panic. I nodded. I believed him. I also believed father would protect sister completely, he wouldn't foolishly gamble the entire Stone family. Thanks to his instructions, when I saw Jade Ashford entering the Crown Prince's study several times in succession, I was no longer surprised. Minister Ashford was a pillar at court, hard to avoid being used by others. Now the Crown Prince was constrained on all sides. Relying on the Ashford family was understandable. Occasionally I met Jade Ashford in the flower garden. Her visits to the study had become routine. Meeting me, she would just nod lightly before we each went our separate ways. Not long after, the Crown Prince's house arrest order expired. The weather gradually entered late autumn, cold air creeping and making people shiver involuntarily. On a southern inspection tour to pacify disasters, Lucas achieved great merit in disaster relief, becoming someone favored by the emperor. The Stone family also gained reflected glory. I stood outside observing for several days. Finally, when rumors spread throughout the capital that Lucas and the third prince were of like mind, discussing state affairs nightly, rumors also began rising in the Eastern Palace that I had fallen from favor. Everyone knew I was just the Stone family's secondary daughter, married to the Eastern Palace to appease the Crown Prince, originally not favored. Others said the Crown Prince indulged me only out of respect for my father. Now that my sister's husband was close to the third prince, the Crown Prince's situation grew more difficult. Naturally, I would no longer be favored as before. Amid the rising gossip from all sides, the Crown Prince came silently to my bedside in the deep quiet night. His eyes were red, like a wounded wild beast. Saying I'd fallen from favor wasn't actually wrong, because he hadn't visited my small courtyard for many days. Now he came at night when I was about to sink into dreams. I hurriedly put on clothes and relit the lamp. In the flickering firelight, the crown prince closed his eyes tightly. When he opened them, his expression had returned to normal. "Your Highness, what has happened?" I asked softly, hands gripping my robe. He asked, "Have you heard the recent rumors about Lucas?" I nodded and said, "Sister sent people a few days ago with lots of silk fabric, telling me to make new clothes. Among them I found a letter, a private letter Sister wrote just for me, asking about recent circumstances." The words were full of regret and helplessness. Even Sister paid attention to those rumors. "I'm afraid now in the capital there's no one who doesn't know. Father Emperor issued an edict today," the crown prince said, "transferring Lucas to the Ministry of Personnel." Hearing this, I couldn't help raising my voice. Ministry of Personnel. Those who understood could see that the third prince and Lucas had colluded, using Minister Ashford's influence to trick once, making the crown prince recommend Lucas, then smoothly paving the way for the third prince, becoming one who made wedding clothes for others. In the end, this was the crown prince being schemed against. Though Lucas had achieved merit in disaster relief and was currently favored by His Majesty, directly transferring him to the Ministry of Personnel for such an important position was truly excessive. "Father Emperor." The crown prince laughed softly but coldly. "He not only shows favoritism but also sees me as a whetstone for Adrian Frost." Adrian Frost was the third prince's given name. If it's a whetstone, then when the sword is sharp, the stone is no longer needed. That sentence coming from the crown prince, who had walked step by step from court discussions, was like a knife piercing the heart. Father and son affection was thin, brothers were divided. The last sentence the crown prince said to me that night was, "Yuan Yuan, I need your help." Lucas's reputation spread far. The third prince's power grew daily. News from within the palace said His Majesty's health was declining day by day, coughing incessantly. And he hadn't attended court for 2 days already. After Lucas was transferred to the Ministry of Personnel, the crown prince became even more wary of the Ashford family. Rumors that the crown prince was preparing to establish Jade Ashford as a secondary consort also increased daily. Things that had spread to people's mouths were like spilled water, hard to take back. Even when I sat leisurely in the garden, I could still hear palace maids whispering. Since I began managing the back courtyard, this was the first time I'd caught people daring to gossip so brazenly. Therefore, I chose a shaded spot, called them over, ordered the guards to bring that maid before me, then personally gave each person 50 strokes. Each slap rang crisply on their cheeks. The maid's tears immediately flowed like a stream. Another slap and she collapsed. Just then Jade Ashford happened to pass through the flower garden as usual. She smiled as if not smiling, elegantly advising me, "Those who can be forgiven should be forgiven." I looked at her coldly and said softly, "This secondary consort is not from the state of Chu, so why does someone without name or status like you have the right to interfere?" Though I might be inferior, I was still properly brought into the Eastern Palace in an 8-bearer sedan chair. And this was exactly the sore spot in Jade Ashford's heart that I had bluntly exposed before all eyes, leaving her nothing to defend with. Thus she and I had torn away all surface courtesy. Right there in the flower garden we exchanged words, arguing without restraint. She was originally a young lady from a refined literary family. How could she match me? A general's daughter, raised on military training grounds since childhood. As our words escalated, I accidentally used too much force and pushed her straight into the lotus pond. That afternoon, she began running a fever, and I was severely scolded by the crown prince. Even in front of Jade Ashford, he coldly pushed me to the ground. From then on, the crown prince and I were considered to have turned against each other. He was so angry he laughed, saying, "You're truly capable, single-handedly stirring up storms that shake heaven and earth in the mansion. You might as well return to the Stone family for peace. Of course you should go." I choked up, unable to hold back tears, crying as I said, "Your Highness only married me for my father's power anyway." With that, I turned and left, departing from Jade Ashford's courtyard. Not long after, rumors spread that I had caused trouble in the back courtyard out of jealousy, making the Eastern Palace unstable and earning the crown prince's disgust. Soon it had spread throughout the capital, even reaching the imperial palace, becoming another reason for others to attack the crown prince. The crown prince wanted me to leave, so I used the excuse of my mother falling ill to request permission to return to the Stone Mansion to visit. Taking this path back to the Stone family, Mother saw me and turned purple with anger, saying my reckless actions would bring disaster to Father. Only Father didn't say much, just looked at me coldly once before telling me to stay for now. The connection between the Stone family and the Crown Prince was considered severed at this point. From then on, the Crown Prince was forced to rely entirely on the Ashford family. Sister came to visit me once, saying she hadn't paid attention to Lucas for many days. She thought she had married a good husband, not expecting to inadvertently push the Stone family to the third prince's side, even implicating me. I held Sister's hand, telling her to wait a bit longer. Sister asked what to wait for. I answered, wait for winter to come. Foxes always come out early to hunt. Indeed, after Sister had a big argument with Lucas, she returned to the mansion, saying she would stay for a while. Knowing she was troubled, I also moved to her courtyard to keep her company. Father returned and said recently at morning court, ministers had begun debating who should receive year-end tributes on behalf of the still ill emperor. By sentiment and reason, that duty originally belonged to the Crown Prince. Yet a minister presented words saying the Crown Prince had made repeated mistakes recently, suggesting the task should be given to someone of virtue and talent. Though the words were tactful, the hidden meaning was clear. The Crown Prince was no longer worthy and should yield to the third prince. Both sides debated endlessly, arguing for several days. Finally, Minister Ashford himself stood up, eloquently recommending third Prince Adrian Frost. The Ashford family had been close to the Crown Prince for many years, their daughter still in the Eastern Palace, yet they didn't hesitate to completely side with the opposition. At that time, I, the only person maintaining connection between the Crown Prince and the Stone family, had also left the Eastern Palace. Seeing the opportunity, foxes finally showed their heads, ultimately revealing their fangs. Because Minister Ashford spoke so earnestly, the duty of receiving year-end tributes finally fell to the third prince. Not long after, rumors spread both inside and outside court that His Majesty intended to establish a new crown prince, that the third prince would be promoted to replace the Eastern Palace. The dispute escalated, brought into the Feng Tian main hall, right before the emperor to determine superiority and discuss seniority. In the hall, arguing voices rose to the heavens. His Majesty, not yet recovered from illness, collapsed in anger, his head striking straight on the jade steps, fainting on the spot. He was immediately taken back to his sleeping quarters but never woke again. The entire court was shaken, everyone anxious and uneasy. My father also didn't attend court for several days. In the evening, I played chess with Sister. The sound of the pipa drifted to our ears. It was my mother playing Mountain Pass Moon in the courtyard. Mother was originally skilled at playing pipa. Her best piece was Mountain Pass Moon. The music carved scenes of distant border troops, the lyrics echoing homesick sorrow. When Father went on distant campaigns in the past, Mother often sat alone in the courtyard playing through the night. I always felt she truly loved Father, she just didn't say it. Since Sister and I married out, they spent more time together, seeming to have developed deeper feelings. While Mother played, Father also sat quietly beside her listening. Today's music seemed to penetrate the heart, making my hand placing the chess piece tremble, making a wrong move that lost the entire game. Sister laughed softly saying, "Today Mother is playing ambush from 10 sides, hearing it can't help but make one shiver. Were you frightened?" My mother's name contained the character Sister often called her Aunt Who. I forced a smile, not knowing how to answer. Sister frowned and asked, "Are you worried about the Crown Prince?" Sister's dignified face was covered in melancholy at that moment. I understood, though Sister had argued with Lucas, in her heart she still couldn't let go. Saying I worried about the Crown Prince was actually Sister speaking of her own heart missing her husband. If His Majesty truly never woke, the Crown Prince and third prince would be like two tigers fighting for the throne. No matter who lost, some among us would have to bear the consequences. So I comforted Sister, "Don't think too much. You've clearly lost weight recently. I just saw Duke of Pingyang enter the capital. The cavalry on the street startled me a bit." The Duke of Pingyang guarded Yi City with 30,000 troops under his command. Unless summoned, he normally never returned to the capital on his own. This time, because His Majesty was seriously ill, he brought cavalry rushing back. parading through the main streets, unclear who he was showing force to. The palace had been strangely quiet these past few days. Not until I'd been at the stone mansion for many days did I hear news that the emperor had been poisoned, assassinated by villains. The empress struck like lightning, investigating the entire back palace. Finally, in Consort Jing's palace they discovered poison. Over 20 people were executed on the spot. This method was as ruthless as when she was falsely accused of sorcery years ago. Cries shook the earth in the palace. Consort Jing screamed that the empress was framing her, even petitioning His Majesty to uphold justice. Unfortunately, His Majesty was already unconscious. The palace gates were tightly closed, even the third prince couldn't enter. In this crisis, Consort Jing suddenly produced a wooden box, saying inside was an edict His Majesty had left. Anyone who dared touch her would be committing the crime of regicide. Right before everyone's eyes, the empress also produced an edict with the imperial jade seal, clearly written that the crown prince would supervise the nation. From that day, Consort Jing was imprisoned in her palace chambers by the empress on grounds of disturbing the back palace. No matter how she cried and wailed, she remained confined. Later she caused trouble again, accusing the empress of altering the edict and harming the sovereign. The empress then ordered all people in that palace cleared out. From then on, no one was allowed to visit. The words of a madwoman, no one dared believe them. His Majesty's edict now decided everything under heaven. The crown prince supervising the nation was considered settled. Father then told mother to play him a piece of ambush from 10 sides, saying tomorrow he would enter the palace. Amid the deep sound of the strings, sister told me that Lucas had fallen ill, his body weakened, unable to get out of bed. The doctor diagnosed it as damage to his meridians from the Northern Flood Relief Mission. Sister seemed to want to go back to care for him, but her heart was still conflicted about whether to go or not. I casually found excuses to keep her. After she returned to her room to sleep peacefully, I quietly stood in the courtyard waiting a while longer. Suddenly I heard 2 bird calls, then a black, clothed masked figure dropped from the roof tiles before me, his movements light as a wildcat. He knelt on one knee, presenting a letter. I opened the envelope. Inside were silver notes, land deeds, and a handwritten letter from the crown prince. In the letter he said tomorrow would be dangerous and unpredictable. The dragon throne wasn't yet secure, so he had secretly prepared carriages outside the city. If I was willing to leave, I could depart immediately. If he succeeded, he would bring me back. If he failed, I could live anonymously in peace, relying on what he left behind. I didn't know if this was a test or if he truly wanted me safe. Or perhaps both. Looking at the 4 characters, Wan Wan Wu Qiu, Si Yuan Yuan without chess calculation at the letter's end, my heart surged like waves. In the end I still couldn't bear to leave. I turned to the black-clothed man beside me and said, "The duty of husband and wife, success or failure, we face together. Please tell the crown prince I will not leave." That night I sat quietly in the empty courtyard. In sister's room, the candlelight also never went out. The next morning, father didn't hurry to court as usual. When he came out, sister and I were both shocked to see him wearing armor, his bearing mighty. His presence like a divine soldier descended. "Father?" Sister called out, her voice full of doubt. I held sister's hand, seeing father turn around, his gaze sweeping between us 2 sisters, then slowly gripping the saber at his waist. In a deep voice he instructed, "You 2 stay safely in the mansion. With your father here, I will definitely protect both your husbands." Father left decisively. The stone mansion's main gates immediately closed, cutting off all news from the outside world. "Eleanor, what did father mean?" Sister gently squeezed my hand, her complexion as if she couldn't digest his words. I was silent for a moment, then asked, "If Lucas dies, could you live on?" Sister seemed struck by lightning, looking at me for a long time before slowly shaking her head. "I couldn't." I sighed then, recounting how my argument with the crown prince and return to the stone mansion was just an act performed for Jade Ashford to see, to lure Minister Ashford, that old fox, out of his den. This also made the third prince believe the Stone family had severed relations with the crown prince. But actually father had long been secretly meeting with the Eastern Palace. He only appeared neutral on the surface. The crown prince had secretly come to the mansion many times. After much effort he finally made father truly submit. "And what about Lucas?" Sister asked, her eyes full of worry. I lowered my eyes, slowly answering, He was originally the Crown Prince's man. The news of his closeness with the third prince was actually released by the Crown Prince. Lucas's acquaintance with the Crown Prince was earlier than I thought. Before he became famous at court, the Crown Prince accidentally learned of him while investigating me. The two had similar aspirations, both harboring dreams of serving the country, devoting themselves to the Eastern Palace's great cause. After Lucas's reputation spread through the capital, he pretended to be close to the third prince, who was like the midday sun. According to the Crown Prince, the third prince had planted quite a few people around him, so sending Lucas over wasn't considered a loss. Lucas once made private vows with my sister. After passing the imperial examinations, he immediately came to propose. During that time, because my father was powerful, there were quite a few who wanted to ruin this marriage. Fortunately, the third prince stepped in to mediate, allowing Lucas and my sister to marry. The third prince thought marrying Lucas to my sister would pull the stone mansion to his side. Who knew that to avoid suspicion, the Crown Prince also hurried to the stone mansion to propose, opening by saying he wanted to marry the legitimate daughter. Saying legitimate daughter was actually just the next calculated step, taking advantage to marry me into the mansion. Thus the Crown Prince rightfully took me as his bride. The third prince had no suspicions at all. Lucas and sister became a couple. The Stone family still maintained surface neutrality. Actually, everything was just a deeply calculated performance. Even the minister once sent to pacify the north was someone the third prince had planted in the Eastern Palace, later implicated in his brother's case in the capital's outskirts, finally forced to reveal flaws. The Crown Prince used this excuse to retreat to his mansion, borrowing Minister Ashford's hand to push Lucas, Sterling up as replacement. On the surface, the Crown Prince lost power, but actually he personally sewed wedding clothes for others, only to snatch them back with his own hands. He had originally calculated step by step to destroy the third prince's power, seizing the throne without bloodshed. So when Lucas began showing himself, the two had already discussed, spreading news of his closeness to the third prince, letting the court and emperor clearly see the third prince had long been plotting, if not lacking in secret traps. If the emperor was still clear-minded, he would surely begin adjusting the court situation. But the Crown Prince didn't expect that. In the emperor's eyes, he was just a whetstone to temper his beloved third prince. The emperor not only didn't mediate but personally appointed Lucas to the ministry. The empress also unexpectedly discovered a handwritten edict from the emperor, his personal brush transferring the throne to the third prince after his death. The Crown Prince, legitimate son of the empress, ultimately couldn't compare to the favoritism in His Majesty's heart. That night, the Crown Prince entered my room, his body already broken down, his expression wary, but every word carried killing intent. I concealed the palace matters, only recounting part to sister. Sister listened for a long time, still not recovering, sitting dazed on the stone bench in the courtyard. Later she asked me, "Do you know why father is wearing armor entering the palace today? Today is the first day of the Crown Prince supervising the nation." How could the third prince willingly give up the throne? The Duke of Pingyang returned to the capital bringing several thousand troops from Yes City, if not to help the third prince wash Phoenix Hall in blood, then for what reason? Father entering the palace is to buy time to risk everything with the Crown Prince, hoping to strike before the third prince can react. Sister was right. Compared to the Yes City soldiers, the Crown Prince and my father's troops were truly weak. I sat down on the courtyard bench, my heart tangled like knotted silk. The capital today was unusually quiet, even the court music from within the imperial palace couldn't be heard. Looking from afar, I could only see layers of curved roof tiles piled up. Not until the sun reached its zenith did I hear the sound of horse hooves, thundering like heaven and earth shaking. The rhythmic unified hoofbeats came from far to near. I quickly stood up, ordering servants to open the main gate. Outside, a troop of soldiers had already surrounded the entire stone mansion. Other soldiers were urgently advancing toward the imperial palace. Someone jumped down from their horse. Standing right before me was Lucas. "How is Victoria? Is she all right?" Lucas was covered in dust. Clearly after feigning illness, he had immediately led troops through the night back to the capital without rest. "Sister is in the back courtyard with mother. The stone mansion is still safe," I quickly answered. He only had time to glance at me before jumping back on his horse. galloping straight toward the imperial palace. The mansion gates closed tightly again. Not long after, noise erupted outside, horse hooves mixed with crying. But then everything quickly fell silent again as if it had never existed. I still sat in the courtyard, sweat soaking my hair. The wind blowing through made my whole body cold. When the shadows slanted westward, the main gate suddenly rang with urge and knocking. The door opened. My father walked in holding his heavy saber. Seeing him, I lost all strength, my legs went soft as I tried to stand, almost collapsing to the ground. "Father." I grabbed his hand, my eyes searching all over. Only after confirming the blood on his armor wasn't his did I dare breathe a sigh of relief. Father returned safely and said your husband and sisters were also safe, currently in the palace maintaining order. Sister and mother were both in the back courtyard. Father should quickly go see them. I pointed toward the back courtyard. After he left, I struggled to leave through the mansion gate. On the streets outside, before my eyes were corpses, broken weapons, and bloodstains everywhere. But the strongest stench came with the wind from the imperial palace, rising in waves making my stomach churn. Fortunately, Lucas had also returned. On his face was a not large, not small scar. Sister cried until her heart broke, both complaining and hitting him repeatedly. I knew I shouldn't stay now, so I went out the gate. The black mourning banners hanging before the gate swayed in the wind, tottering unsteadily. "Wan Yim," someone called my name. Turning around, I saw the crown prince had arrived. He wore new ceremonial robes, his whole body without injury, standing before me imposingly as if nothing had happened. Yuan, I won, I really won. You don't need to be afraid anymore, you don't need to be afraid," he waved toward me. My nose stung. I rushed to embrace him tightly, burying my head in his chest, hands gripping his robes without letting go. I was truly terrified, from when you told me the plan, from when the Duke of Pingyang returned to the capital, from when Lucas feigned illness, from when my father left the mansion. Every hour, every moment I was so scared I wanted to go mad. The crown prince used one arm to hold my waist, the other patting my back continuously. The tears at the corners of my eyes finally fell, I couldn't stop them anymore. My tears soaked into his clothes. When I raised my face, the robe on the crown prince's chest was clearly 2 shades darker. He cried for me, then suddenly whispered. I was also afraid. "What did you fear?" I blinked lightly, suppressing the tears still on my lashes. "Afraid that after marrying you, I would harm you for life." The crown prince waved his hand. Behind him, attendants presented several paintings. I opened the top one. It was the plum blossom in snow painting from that day, but somehow a figure had been added, wearing a long robe with her back turned, hair in double buns, hurriedly walking through the snow. "Is this me?" I looked up at the crown prince. He nodded. "Yes, it's from when you returned to the crown prince's mansion. The first time I met you. You showed me the way, and I looked at your retreating figure wondering, if I could marry you as my wife, what great fortune that would be in this life." I flipped through the others, all paintings of me. Though not many, each one was me. That night I looked at paintings while talking with him through the night. He recounted when imprisoned in the heavenly prison. Everyone turned their backs, all following consort Jing and the third prince. Even he himself once thought he wasn't equal to Adrian Frost. He also said that day's snacks he had offered to Empress Mother, she ate them all. I clearly hadn't drunk wine, yet my mind felt hazy as if drunk, only remembering vaguely. When the room's lamps lowered, he softly called me, "Juan." I wrapped my arms around his waist, softly calling his name many times. Several days after the upheaval, outside still wasn't peaceful, the imperial palace still in chaos, so sister and I temporarily stayed at the stone mansion. Outside the Meridian Gate, quite a few were executed. The bloody smell didn't dissipate for days. The Ashford family was also on the list of those implicated. Of the entire clan, only Jade Ashford remained, under house arrest at the Crown Prince's mansion. The city was strictly sealed, even a fly would have difficulty escaping. Father recounted that on the day of upheaval, Adrian Frost was struck by Father's palm. During the melee he was protected and taken out of the palace. His whereabouts were now unknown. Because remnants were still hiding, security was increased both inside and outside the stone mansion. Sister and I were bored, so we begged Mother to teach us the pipa. Of all the things proper young ladies should learn, sister and I had been trained since childhood. Only 2 things, literature and martial arts, we never learned. Sister's body was weak and couldn't withstand hardship. I simply couldn't learn no matter what. Later father had no choice but to have someone teach us martial arts to strengthen our bodies. Sister's body remained weak, but after a serious illness at age 11, I gradually grew stronger. Following the master, I learned a few boxing and kicking moves. After studying Pipa for 2 days, a guard from the Crown Prince's mansion came to the stone mansion reporting that Jade Ashford had been poisoned. Before dying, she wanted to see me one last time. Hearing the 2 words, poisoned, everyone couldn't help shuddering. I asked the messenger where she got the poison. He answered it was rat poison from the Qinghui courtyard, used to kill mice and ants. When the servants discovered her, she had already vomited several mouthfuls of blood. The doctor said she was beyond saving. I put down the pipa. In my mind flashed Jade Ashford's delicate features, making each breath feel suffocating. Mother said, already gently putting away the pipa for me. Outside isn't safe yet. Remember to bring extra guards. The Crown Prince's mansion has people guarding too. He won't dare act recklessly. The messenger said the doctor had given 2 strong doses of medicine. Now she only had 1 breath left, stubbornly holding on just to wait for me. When I arrived at Qinghui courtyard, Jade Ashford wore deep red wedding robes, sitting properly in the room as if she'd been waiting for me a long time. On her clothes were embroidered golden peonies, blazing red like clusters of burning fire. Though she had applied rouge and red lipstick, her complexion was still ashen, unable to hide her illness. You wanted to see me. I signaled the maids to stop outside, entering the room alone. Do I look beautiful in these wedding robes? She raised her head, forcing a proper smile. Beautiful. Jade Ashford was originally a nation-toppling beauty, the only one who could compare to my sister, sometimes even surpassing her. Though now seriously ill, she was still radiant as before. I embroidered these wedding robes with my own hands. I once vowed that one day I would wear them to marry Alexander. But before I finished embroidering, you had already married into the mansion. Her gaze rested on my face like 2 cold swords, then she said softly, I don't hold grudges. I know he married you only for the Stone family's power. His favor toward you is just a show for outsiders. You're nothing but a secondary consort, a plaything. But I'm different. One day when he ascends the throne as emperor, the one standing beside him conquering the world will be me. You're from the Ashford family, daughter of the Ashfords who long ago submitted to the 3rd prince, I said coldly. Hearing the words, Ashford family, she burst into brilliant laughter. That year I myself begged father to let me enter the Crown Prince's mansion. Before entering, my father and brothers all instructed me to wholeheartedly serve the Crown Prince. I thought the Ashfords had chosen to side with the Crown Prince. I thought if I just devoted myself to him single-mindedly when he ascended the throne, he would surely see me. You don't know anything, do you? I tried to suppress my anger. Fury stuck in my throat. All along I had thought she was a chess piece placed by Minister Ashford. But she laughed miserably, laughing until she stopped, then said, Do you know what's easiest to exploit in this world? True feelings. My father and brother my feelings for Alexander, and he also exploited my feelings for him. At 16, I first saw Alexander at a poetry gathering. He composed a poem that made my heart flutter. Knowing his difficulties, knowing my father admired him, I was even more determined to approach him. Before you married into the mansion, he was passionate and ambitious. But after you came, everything changed. Jade Ashford suddenly raised her voice, supporting herself to stand. Her sleeve swept up, knocking the tea set on the table to the floor. The teacup shattered at my feet, porcelain shards scattering everywhere. Since you married into the mansion, he's been disadvantaged everywhere, hindered in everything. I said you were a disaster star, the calamity the Stone family sent. Jade Ashford steadied herself with one hand on the table, the other pointing straight at me. Her voice was more shattered than the broken jade cup. But you all deceived me. You all knew the truth clearly. Only I was the fool in this play. Amid her choking sobs, I saw dark blood flowing from the corner of her mouth, her complexion growing darker. Everyone in the world is a chess piece, but everyone has times when they place their own moves. Only I never even saw the board clearly. Jade Ashford raised her head, eyes blazing red. What exactly did I lose to you in? Was it family background, talent, or appearance? Why did he never truly care for me? I answered it was family background and timing. My father chose the crown prince early, under her yearning gaze. I paused briefly then continued. When I met him, you still weren't who you are today. Jade Ashford fell silent, her voice hoarse like a dull sword grinding on stone. Wouldn't he have cured me? Could I really bow my head and kneel before my enemy, living on a thread of pity to prolong my wretched life? If it were you, could you accept that? I couldn't, I answered. Someone as proud as Jade Ashford even less so. She smiled faintly. You must find it strange, I had long intended to die. Why poison myself only today? Because you all schemed against me, so even in death I must take a chess piece with me. She walked step by step toward me. Her body weak, but her voice like snake venom, soft yet chilling. Do you think Adrian Frost has been missing so long yet the whole city can't find him? Because he's at the Crown Prince's mansion. My whole body trembled. Don't worry too much. She laughed lightly. He's not there now. But if he wanted to take a hostage to leave the city, to avenge his severed hand, who do you think he'd look for? A chill ran down my spine. Sister, I murmured. Not waiting for her to finish speaking, I pushed her away and turned to run. Maids and guards rushed after me. My steps pounded like drums in my chest. I stumbled running back to the stone mansion, tripping on the threshold and falling to the ground. The hairpins fell scattered. I immediately sent guards back to the mansion while I cut the carriage horse's reins and galloped back quickly. I arrived almost simultaneously with the officials and soldiers. The stone mansion was already surrounded. The sound of crying echoed through the walls, making me fall from my horse. Servants helped me inside. In the courtyard lay corpses, mostly familiar household servants. I grabbed someone. Was it Adrian Frost? The person nodded, face deathly pale. He appeared suddenly, leading remnants to massacre the stone mansion's back courtyard. Now he was surrounded. I led people around to the back courtyard. Indeed, the corpses there were piled even higher. I saw Adrian Frost, who had lost one hand, trapped in a garden corner with his few remaining trusted followers. With just one shout from me, the soldiers beside me would immediately charge forward and chop him to pieces. But he had captured my sister, holding her before his chest. A blood-stained blade pressed against her throat, making her not dare move at all. Behind him on a large stone, I also saw a corpse with a blade pierced through the chest, blood still slowly flowing out, staining the stone platform dark red. Mother! I opened my mouth, only managing 2 words like wind passing by my ear, too weak to form words. The one blocking my way was pushed down by me. I wanted to rush forward like a madwoman, but not a single tear would fall. That was my mother. You who hadn't yet taught me to play the pipa. Sister was also crying, gritting her teeth urging me not to come near. Someone held me tightly. The more I struggled wildly, screaming for them to let go. Finally, father returned first with Lucas. Father grabbed my shoulders, pulling me back. I turned around, only seeing his face full of patient grief. I knelt on the ground, hand pointing toward mother, lips moving wanting to speak, but only making broken sounds. Not until father softly called, Eleanor, did I finally cry out loud. Mother is still there. Father, let me go to her, but father wouldn't allow it. He stood before me. I saw blood had already seeped out at sister's throat. Lucas gripped his blade tightly as if he only wanted to charge forward and chop Adrian Frost into 100 pieces. But he demanded good horses and silver notes. He wanted to see his mother consort Jing and wanted father to open the city gates to send him away. Otherwise he would kill my sister on the spot. Father didn't speak for a long time. I couldn't see his expression clearly, only saw his hands trembling slightly. On one side was his most beloved daughter, on the other his mortal enemy. I felt my head about to explode, heaven and earth spinning, dizzy and unable to stand steady. Let me. I wiped away my tears, suppressed my sobs, struggled to stand up, walked to father's side, looked straight at Adrian Frost. I raised my voice, "What me exchange for sister?" His eyes flickered. I continued. I am the Crown Prince's secondary consort. From the beginning, the one he liked was me. The one who staged everything with him was also me. By capturing sister, you can only threaten my father. But if you capture me, you can threaten the Crown Prince. My voice tried to stay steady without trembling. Indeed, his hand shook slightly. After some struggle, he agreed to let me approach. I walked step by step slowly toward him. Don't. A choked cry rang out. It was sister stopping me. Father also held my hand. Father's palm was rough and full of scotters, yet it made my heart feel shattered. My father ultimately didn't want to use one daughter to exchange for another. His eyes met mine, his expression suddenly changing. I had already lost mother. I couldn't lose sister too. Under my wide sleeve, I lightly wrote a character on his wrist, then decisively pulled my hand from his. When I got close to Adrian Frost, I could already clearly see the madness and bloodthirst in his eyes. His left hand was gone, the stump wrapped crudely, looking bizarre and frightening. Sister choked looking at me. I took another step forward. He pulled her back, pushing her hard toward Lucas. Just as he embraced sister, I was also locked tightly in Adrian Frost's arms, the cold blade pressed against my neck and shoulder. With slight pressure from him, I immediately felt sharp pain. Then hot blood flowed out, seeping through skin into the inner clothing. Father sent someone to fetch horses, then immediately went to the palace to report to the crown prince. Adrian Frost held me captive, leading his surrounded subordinates, step by step slowly moving. From the stone mansion to the long street, then from the long street straight to the city gate. Without the crown prince's order, no one dared open the city gate. The two sides remained in stalemate like this, the atmosphere so tense it was suffocating. Adrian Frost's heavy breathing sounded by my ear. The arm gripping me grew tighter and tighter. "Are you afraid?" he asked. I tried to lean back but still couldn't avoid the pain from the cut on my neck. "Shut up." The blade pressed closer. He growled softly, breathing heavily like a wild beast cornered. The third prince had been spoiled since childhood. Now defeated, he'd become a rebel, hiding for so many days, now facing exile to foreign lands with life and death uncertain. His fear was certainly considerable, but even more was his unwillingness. "I told you to shut up." Adrian Frost gritted his teeth, his words trembling like his hand holding the blade. "You say one more word, I'll kill you on the spot. You won't dare kill me." I couldn't tell if the wetness on my clothes was blood or sweat, but still maintained composure and continued speaking. "Kill me, and you'll never leave the city. You still need to use me to exchange for Consort Jing, still need to rely on me to escape. If you want my life, you'll have to wait until after leaving here to act." With hatred deep as the ocean, someone like Adrian Frost, whether using me or my sister as hostage, once he escaped would certainly kill to silence us. He didn't answer. I couldn't see his expression clearly, only knew his hand trembled more and more. Especially when I mentioned Consort Jing, his breathing grew more chaotic. My hand clenched tightly in my sleeve. Just at this critical moment, the crown prince arrived. Standing tall before the city gate amid the sea of people, I saw him galloping toward us on horseback. That figure drew closer and closer, also making Adrian Frost completely alert. The crown prince shouted angrily, demanding he release me. But Adrian Frost seemed to enjoy seeing the crown prince lose composure. The blood-stained blade almost cut straight into my neck, making me cry out in pain. "Adrian Frost, if you dare harm her, even if you flee to the ends of the earth, this king will definitely skin you alive." The crown prince waved his sleeve, his whole being radiating killing intent, his face contorted. "My mother first. If you want her to live, open the city gate, bring good horses, use my mother to exchange." As soon as he finished speaking, someone led forward a carriage. The crown prince said, "Consort Jing is inside." The carriage curtain lifted slightly, vaguely showing a woman's shadow. But Adrian Frost didn't believe it, demanding the carriage door be opened. The crown prince gave the order. The city gate rumbled open. He pulled me slowly backward. The short distance seemed to stretch endlessly. Good horses were also brought over, standing beside the carriage containing Consort Jing, waiting together on the opposite side. "I'll give you horses, silver, and the person, just release her." The crown prince pointed at me, ordering his mother to get down from the carriage and walk over herself. Both sides fell into stalemate again. The woman in the carriage was helped down. Though her beauty had faded, she still faintly showed her former charm. The crown prince once said Consort Jing was the most favored in the back palace. Usually the emperor couldn't bear to see even a drop of her blood. Yet today, the first time I met her was in this situation. This was the consort the emperor had favored all his life, loved all his life, even planning to give the empire to her son mother. Adrian Frost shouted loudly, tears streaming down. Consort Jing also cried soundlessly. One person on each side, neither willing to yield first. Consort Jing wailed, urging her son to leave alone. But Adrian Frost insisted on taking his mother with him. Someone held her arm tightly despite her cries. In everyone's sight, Consort Jing suddenly shouted loudly, "Yunji, don't." then unexpectedly threw herself onto a blade. Blood spurted from the wound, staining the ground red, making me unconsciously think of my own mother. You've fallen on the steps with no breath left. My limbs turned cold. Adrian Frost's anguished cries rang in my ears as if tearing heaven and earth apart. This action shocked everyone completely. Consort Jing used her own life to cut off all his retreat paths. The horses had been brought before him. The person also delivered. Someone hurriedly covered Consort Jing's body, but Adrian Frost still wouldn't leave, as if he'd gone mad. Your Highness, the noble crown prince, my good second brother, do you love her so much? He laughed while crying, screaming madly. Then cut off your own hand tendons, I'll spare her. If you don't dare, I'll kill her right here. The pain in my neck seemed numb, my ears also muffled. The crown prince had always been wise, understanding righteousness, but this matter was nearly hopeless. My sister, I, and even father all understood this clearly. But the crown prince only paused briefly before turning to draw the blade from father's waist. Left hand holding the blade, right hand raised, the gleaming blade pressed straight against his own wrist. Even father couldn't stop him in time. Everyone around called out, everyone urged him to reconsider. He only answered one sentence. Words spoken, how can they not be kept? What Adrian Frost didn't dare do, I'll do instead. I wanted to shake my head but couldn't move. When the sharp blade fell, Adrian Frost also wavered, his blade, holding hand trembling. I saw the crown prince's wrist bleeding, just like the wound on my neck. I looked between Adrian Frost and the crown prince, hearing hoarse laughter like a demon's emerging from his throat. The laughter made his arm tremble. I immediately looked at father. Our eyes met. I tightly gripped the golden hairpin in my hand and stabbed straight into Adrian Frost's thigh. It was the hairpin I'd dropped when falling at the crown prince's mansion. A birthday gift mother once gave. Now more than half the pin was embedded in his flesh. He retreated in pain. I immediately swept away that stiff arm, but he still gripped my robe. I used all the martial arts I'd learned to struggle with him. Father! I shouted loudly. In that split second of lightning and thunder, an archer with the force of 10,000 troops tore through the wind rushing forward. The sharp arrow grazed past my cheek, piercing straight through Adrian Frost's forehead. At the same moment, a fierce stabbing pain transmitted through my chest, as if tearing apart my heart. Father, you are General Marcus Stone, who won every battle, victorious wherever you fought. You once taught me and sister that when bullied, don't cry, clench your fists and fight back. Adrian Frost fell backward on his back, making a heavy thud. Dust flew up. His eyes still stared wide open. More arrows shot straight toward the leaderless remnants. The soldiers suppressed for so long finally charged forward to counterattack. Behind came the sound of rushing footsteps, but I had no strength to turn around. I looked down at Adrian Frost's blade piercing my chest. Red blood flowed continuously. In just that brief moment, my robe was already soaked dark. Someone called, Eleanor. Someone shook me calling, Wan Yan. But I couldn't speak, could only fall to the ground, body limp like Adrian Frost's corpse earlier. In the bushes, startled birds flew chaotically, their cries tearing through the air. It was the crown prince holding me. His arms trembled continuously, unable to speak a complete sentence. Alexander, I hurt so much. So this is how much it hurt when mother passed away. I sobbed. I woke on an afternoon. Sunlight filtered through the window, passing through pale yellow curtains, dyeing the bed with gentle light. My throat was parched as if burning. Just a slight groan and someone came near the bedside. Sister. I squinted, trying to adjust to the light. It's me. Her voice was gentle, her cold hands enveloping my right hand. I was about to struggle up when she quickly stopped me, sending palace maids to summon the imperial physician and the emperor. Emperor, the emperor, I murmured, but the pain from my wound immediately turned my face deathly pale. Don't move. She gently tucked the covers around me. A few days ago, the late emperor passed away. The crown prince has ascended the throne. I only remembered fainting, not expecting to be unconscious so long. You've slept nearly half a month. She choked up. The physician said. You were severely wounded. That day the emperor carried you back to the palace. We almost couldn't save you. Everyone hoped daily for you to wake. Now seeing you awake, I'm finally at ease. Sister spoke while wiping my hair. Father was an external minister and couldn't always stay in the palace, so she had stayed by my side many days. She'd clearly lost weight. She said the rebels had been nearly all eliminated, The capital was now stable. Father had recounted that day's events. When I touched the hairpin and pressed it into his hand along with the character I wrote on his wrist. Father was skilled at archery, able to take an enemy general's life amid 10,000 troops. I trusted your swordsmanship, and you also trusted that I wouldn't let Adrian Frost escape. That day Sister saved me, then it was my turn to save you. Sister's voice caught. If Sister hadn't pushed me away, that blade would have pierced through me. My chest felt heavy, my heart as if torn apart. I tried hard to remember Mother's appearance when alive. She was slender, spoke gently. Each time standing beside Father she was just a silent shadow following behind, like the willow shadows under the eaves in the women's quarters. Mother's figure was always slender and quiet. Even a breeze moving branches was enough to make one's heart flutter with worry. Now she had departed to save my sister. Naturally she hoped Sister would live this life completely. My hand and Sister's clasped together, warmth gently transmitting as if hearts couldn't express their grief. Aunt Helena was buried at the clan grounds, Sister said. When I was a bit better, we would go together to pay respects at her grave. I nodded. Tears silently rolled down my cheeks, catching in my hair. Sister helped me drink some warm water, then gradually recounted what had happened. I felt my head heavy, eyes drowsy, wanting to sleep again. If not for the sudden sound of kneeling and greetings outside, I might have fallen back into dreams. The crown prince had ascended, now I should call him emperor. He entered quickly with the imperial physician following behind. Sister withdrew to one side, leaving space for him to sit at my bedside. He had also lost much weight, his brows still hiding melancholy and weariness. Wen Yuan, I've come. He leaned over, forcing a smile, but that smile contained such bitterness it couldn't be considered beautiful. The physician took my pulse, looking at his expression as he asked careful questions. Though I lay motionless, I could feel sweat flowing down his temples. Speak truthfully. The emperor held my hand, his voice deep. I won't blame you. The more he asked, the tighter his grip. I saw the wound on his wrist, now only a faint red mark remained. The physician knelt down, voice trembling in reply. Your Majesty, the injury was too severe. Though she has awakened, her heart meridians are damaged, ki and blood weakened. From now on she must rest quietly, limiting activity. Perhaps then she might live as long as ordinary people. The physician knocked his head as if wanting to bury himself in the ground. The emperor frowned, his expression grave. Seeing him trembling endlessly, I had to gently pull his hand, comforting. It's fine. I'll remember the physician's words. As long as I recuperate well, it will be all right. He waved his hand. Everyone withdrew, even Sister excused herself. The inner hall suddenly became strangely quiet. He raised his hand to gently stroke my cheek, asking, Does it still hurt? I smiled, lightly shaking my head. Don't worry. I'll definitely find good medicine and skilled doctors. I won't let anything happen to you again. I smiled softly, telling him to lean closer. When his face pressed near, I lightly stretched up, placing a kiss on the corner of his mouth. With you beside me, I have nothing more to worry about. The physician's medicine was bitter indeed. When unconscious I didn't notice, but once awake, drinking each sip was bitter enough to numb the heart. The emperor often had people deliver various medicinal ointments, saying they could fade the scar on my neck. Perhaps afraid I'd be sad, he also said if it didn't fade it didn't matter. We'd be a matched pair with marks. Sister ultimately was an external noble lady. Once I woke, she couldn't stay in the palace long. When I could walk, she would request to leave the palace and return home. I left the palace with Sister, first going to pay respects at Mother's grave. Mother's grave wasn't far from the legitimate wife's tomb. On the stele beside her name were carved 4 characters. Wife of Marcus Stone. Marcus was Father's name. Sister said the 4 characters. Wife of Marcus Stone. On Mother's tomb were personally instructed to be carved by Father. I sat by Mother's grave for a long time. In my hazy state I suddenly remembered Mother's figure from before. Mother sitting on the threshold talking and laughing under moonlight. But the more I tried to remember, the fainter and smaller the image became. Not until dusk fell did Sister and I return to the stone mansion with Father's people. Father was the same as always, few words, face stern as if angry. Only now the hair at his temples had turned gray. The 3 of us ate a reunion meal that didn't feel like reunion, the meal passing in complete silence. Father didn't speak of merit or the Stone family's prosperity, only instructing me to take care of myself when returning to the palace. Afterward he saw us off. He himself didn't look back when entering the mansion. Sister returned to the Sterling Mansion while I returned to the Imperial Palace. Without Sister beside me, the days in the palace became even more tasteless. The Empress Dowager summoned me for audiences several times, telling me to rest and recuperate, while also advising me to maintain proper order in the back palace. The Emperor still often came to see me, but each time wasn't very long. Sometimes before finishing a chess game, he had to return to the main hall to handle state affairs. I learned flower arranging and tea ceremony, small things to pass time. When terribly bored, I sometimes went out to watch little palace maids playing Kyuju. Watching them play, my heart also felt joy by association. After who knows how many days, suddenly news came from the front court: father had retired from his position. The 20,000 troops at the border, though connected to the Stone family for years, ultimately belonged to the imperial court, not a private family. The emperor granted father the title Marquis of Xianxia. After all, he was imperial family relations. I couldn't manage front court affairs, still drinking bitter medicine daily, living a quiet life. The emperor said the grand ceremony for my investiture had been secretly prepared. After completing it next year, I would officially become his empress. All the deficiencies from when I married into the crown prince's mansion years ago, he would compensate me for one by one. Very quickly after, the first snow covered Chang'an City. White snow filling dots of decoration between red walls and roof tiles was breathtakingly beautiful. I sat in the courtyard viewing snow. The emperor suddenly came saying the palace plum blossoms had bloomed. He wanted to take me to Snow Pavilion to view flowers. Hadn't he once promised to take me to see plums? Now it was considered fulfilled. I wore thick cloaks, holding a hand warmer, slowly going with him to the plum garden. Along the way many palace servants were sweeping snow, the crowd bustling lively. At the garden entrance, the emperor told everyone to withdraw, leading only me into the garden. Layer upon layer of red plum blossoms bloomed magnificently, every branch covered with snow, the pure plum fragrance wafting to envelop one's whole body. The emperor pointed to an empty area before us, saying later would have people build a pavilion there, making it more convenient to view plums in the future. He personally removed my outer cloak, saying softly, "The days ahead will all be good days." I said I wanted to pick a few branches to take back. He told me to stand still and let him go instead. In that scene of white snow and plum shadows, I followed his figure, tall and slender, his bearing like jade, quiet yet strong. This person was the emperor who planned the world at court, also the husband willing to stroll with me under snow, personally picking a branch of red plum. He once said his feelings always needed to weigh advantages and disadvantages before giving. But once given, they would definitely be the most valuable true heart. What more could one ask for in this world? I turned to look through the quietly falling snow. In the distance, palace walls towered majestically, jade towers and golden palaces blocking my view of the mortal world. Though I knew from now on I would no longer be as free as before. But fortunately, the person I was willing to follow for life was also the one my heart remembered. This story teaches us that true love often requires sacrifice and patience. Eleanor's journey from unrequited love to becoming empress shows that destiny works in mysterious ways. Sometimes what seems like settling for second best becomes our greatest blessing. The story reminds us that in political games and power struggles, genuine affection is rare and precious. Most importantly, it demonstrates that true strength lies not in fighting for what we want, but in protecting those we love, even if it means letting go of our own desires.